In the vast, whispering plains of rural England, where ancient oaks stand like silent guardians over forgotten paths, a lone nomad named Elias wandered with his faithful goat, Bess. The sun dipped low, casting golden hues across the rolling hills, each blade of grass swaying in a gentle breeze that carried the scent of wild heather and damp earth. Elias, a man weathered by years of solitary journeys, felt a deep pull in his soul, as if destiny itself whispered through the leaves. Bess trotted ahead, her bells tinkling softly, a melody that echoed the rhythm of Elias's hopeful heart. He paused by an old stone wall, remnants of a bygone era when villages thrived here, their stories etched into the moss-covered rocks. Faith had always guided him, a quiet flame in the darkness of uncertainty, reminding him that every step held purpose. As twilight embraced the landscape, Elias noticed something peculiar, a faint glow emanating from beneath a cluster of brambles. His heart stirred with curiosity, a spark of emotion that blended wonder and trepidation. Kneeling down, he brushed aside the thorns, revealing an weathered leather pouch half buried in the soil, as if the earth had guarded it for centuries. Inside the pouch lay a cryptic map, its parchment yellowed with age, adorned with intricate symbols that danced like shadows in the fading light. Elias's fingers trembled as he unfolded it, feeling a surge of destiny wrap around him like a warm embrace. The map depicted winding tunnels beneath the hills, leading to what appeared to be an abandoned town, marked with runes that spoke of hidden truths. Bess nuzzled his side, her eyes reflecting an unspoken wisdom, as if she too sensed the mystery unfolding. Elias whispered a prayer under his breath, invoking the spirits of the land to guide him. The rural culture of these parts, rich with folklore of lost souls and buried secrets, filled his mind with tales passed down through generations. That night, under a canopy of stars, Elias studied the map by the flicker of his campfire. Strange signals began to appear, whispers in the wind that mimicked ancient chants, and distant lights flickering on the horizon like hopeful beacons. His emotions swelled, a mix of awe and a quiet fear that tugged at his heartstrings. In the morning, as dew kissed the meadows, Elias followed Bess along a narrow path lined with wildflowers. She led him to an old oak tree, its trunk scarred by time, where he found a small, engraved stone tablet partially embedded in the roots. The object pulsed with an otherworldly energy, its carvings matching those on the map, evoking a sense of profound connection to the past. Elias's breath caught in his throat. This was no coincidence, but a thread of fate weaving through his life. He reflected on his nomadic existence, how hope had sustained him through lonely winters and barren trails. Now, this discovery stirred something deeper, an emotional resonance that made his spirit soar. As they ventured deeper into the countryside, the landscape grew more enigmatic, twisted vines forming archways that seemed to beckon them forward. Bess paused at a hidden crevice in the hillside, her hooves scraping the ground insistently. Elias's heart pounded with anticipation, the mystery growing like vines around his thoughts. Pushing aside the foliage, he revealed the entrance to a tunnel, dark and inviting, its walls etched with faded murals depicting villagers fleeing some unseen peril. A wave of emotion washed over him, sorrow for those lost, mingled with the thrill of uncovering their story. Faith reminded him that light always pierced the shadows. Inside the tunnel, the air grew thick with the scent of damp stone and forgotten time. Torch in hand, Elias followed Bess's steady gait, her presence a comforting anchor in the enveloping silence. Moments of quiet stretched, broken only by the drip of water, allowing reflections on destiny to bloom in his mind. Suddenly, a faint echo reverberated. A voice? Or merely the wind? Tension built slowly, each step heightening the suspense, as if the tunnels themselves held their breath. Elias's emotions churned, hope flickering like his torch flame against the encroaching dark. Deeper in, they stumbled upon an ancient chest, its lock rusted but intact. With trembling hands, Elias pried it open, revealing a bundle of letters tied with faded ribbon. The topmost one, addressed to a long-lost love, spoke of a hidden town where secrets of eternal life were guarded, but warned of dangers lurking in the depths. His heart ached with the raw emotion of the words, a testament to love enduring through time. This revelation partial, teasing at greater mysteries, left him yearning for more. Bess bleated softly, as if urging him onward, her loyalty a beacon of unwavering faith. As the tunnel twisted, unexpected revirvoltas emerged, side passages that led to dead ends, illusions of light that vanished upon approach. Elias felt the mystery crescendo, phrases of ancient incantations whispering in his ear, generating a suspense that clutched at his soul. Pausing in a chamber adorned with glowing crystals, he reflected on the rural legends of guardians protecting sacred knowledge. Emotion welled up, tears pricking his eyes at the beauty of it all, a profound sense of being part of something larger than himself. Further along, a partial revelation struck. One letter mentioned a key artifact in the abandoned town, capable of unlocking destinies, but hinted at a curse that befell those unworthy. Incognitas lingered, shadows of doubt mingling with his burgeoning hope. The air grew warmer, a sign they neared the end of the tunnels, yet Elias sensed the preamble to something monumental. His steps slowed, savoring the magnetic pull of the unknown, each breath a prayer for guidance. Bess led with determination, her eyes gleaming in the dim light, as if she carried the weight of ancient wisdom on her back. Elias's heart swelled with gratitude for her companionship, a silent bond that spoke volumes in the quiet. Whispers intensified, forming coherent fragments of stories. Tales of a town abandoned after a cataclysm, its inhabitants vanishing into myth. Tension mounted, emotional layers peeling back to reveal vulnerability and strength intertwined. In a moment of silence, Elias knelt, touching the cool stone floor, feeling the pulse of the earth. Reflections flooded him. How faith had carried him this far, how hope illuminated the darkest paths. As they approached a faint glow ahead, signifying the town's entrance, suspense hung thick like mist. The mystery, rich with cultural echoes of rural England, promised revelations yet to unfold. Elias's emotions peaked, a blend of awe and quiet resolve, knowing this was but the beginning of a greater journey. The light grew stronger, casting ethereal patterns on the walls, hinting at wonders beyond. Bess quickened her pace, pulling him forward into the unknown. His mind raced with possibilities, destiny's hand guiding every turn. Yet questions remained, veils of mystery still drawn tight. The air hummed with anticipation, a prelude to the extraordinary. Elias whispered to himself, "What lies ahead may change everything." Silence enveloped them once more, magnifying the heartbeat of the adventure. Hope flickered eternal, a light in the encroaching revelation. The tunnel's end loomed, a threshold to secrets untold. Emotions stirred deeply, faith anchoring his spirit. As they neared, a distant rumble echoed, building toward the climax unspoken. Bess halted, ears perked, as if sensing the shift. Elias's breath steadied, ready for the partial truths to give way. The mystery, alive and breathing, beckoned them onward. In this pause, reflections of rural heritage filled his thoughts, timeless and profound. Destinies we've tightened, emotions raw and pure. The glow intensified, promising a virata on the horizon. Yet the story lingered, suspended in magnetic tension as the glow at the tunnel's end intensified. Elias felt a chill snake up his spine, a harbinger of truths that could shatter his fragile world. His heart raced, pounding like a drum in the silence, each beat echoing the fear that destiny might demand a price too steep for his wandering soul. Bess pressed close, her warmth a fragile shield against the encroaching dread, her eyes wide with an instinctual knowing that stirred Elias's deepest emotions. Tears welled unbidden, born of a hope so raw it bordered on despair, as memories of lost loved ones flooded his mind like a relentless tide. The rumble grew louder, vibrating through the stone, as if the earth itself mourned the secrets it was about to relinquish. Elias clutched the map tighter, its edges cutting into his palms, a physical reminder of the faith that had led him here, now teetering on the edge of betrayal. Whispers evolved into murmurs, fragments of anguished voices pleading for release, tugging at his heartstrings with their sorrowful pleas. Emotion choked him, a whirlwind of pity and terror, as he imagined the souls trapped in this limbo, their hopes extinguished long ago. Bess bleated sharply, a sound laced with urgency that pierced Elias's soul, urging him forward despite the terror clawing at his resolve. He whispered her name, his voice breaking, grateful for her unwavering loyalty amid the storm of his inner turmoil. The light revealed faint outlines of crumbling archways, gateways to the abandoned town, where shadows danced like ghosts in mourning. Elias's breath hitched, hope flickering dimly against the overwhelming sense of loss that permeated the air, thick as fog. A sudden gust from ahead carried the faint scent of decay, mingling with wild herbs, evoking rural tales of curses that devoured the unwary. His mind reeled, emotions surging, regret for paths not taken, mingled with a desperate yearning for redemption. As they stepped closer, the ground trembled slightly, loosening pebbles that clattered like omens. Tension coiled in Elias's chest, a vice of suspense that made every inhale a battle, his faith tested in the crucible of the unknown. In the quiet that followed, he reflected on his life's tapestry, woven with threads of solitude and fleeting joys, now unraveling under the weight of this mystery. Tears streamed down his face, hot and unashamed, as hope warred with the fear of what revelations awaited. Bess nudged him gently, her touch a lifeline in the emotional maelstrom, reminding him of the simple bonds that anchored humanity amid chaos. His heart swelled with love for her, a pure emotion cutting through the dread like a ray of dawn. The entrance loomed, a jagged maw framed by vines that seemed to writhe with life, whispering warnings in the wind. Elias paused, pulse thundering, the mystery's grip tightening, promising joys or sorrows that could redefine his existence. Voices swelled, clearer now, cries of betrayal, echoes of a cataclysm that had torn families asunder. Emotion overwhelmed him, a torrent of empathy for those forgotten, fueling a resolve born of shared human fragility. Yet doubt crept in, insidious and cold, questioning if his faith was delusion, his hope a cruel jest. The rural culture's lore, rich with stories of hubris punished, amplified his inner conflict, leaving him breathless. As they crossed the threshold, the air shifted, heavy with anticipation, the town's ruins emerging in spectral glory under a hidden skylight. Elias's eyes widened, heart aching with the beauty and tragedy intertwined, a poignant reminder of time's merciless march. Shadows stirred, perhaps illusions or something more, heightening the suspense that clawed at his sanity. He reached for Bess, fingers trembling, drawing strength from her steady presence amid the emotional upheaval. A partial revelation glimmered. Faded murals on the walls depicted a ritual gone awry, villagers sacrificing all for eternal hope, only to face ruin. Incognitas deepened, his soul torn between awe and horror at the implications. The mystery pulsed like a living entity, drawing him deeper into the town's heart, where derelict homes stood as silent witnesses to shattered dreams. Elias's emotions peaked, a crescendo of longing for answers that might heal or destroy. In a moment of profound silence, he knelt amid the dust, praying for guidance, his voice a whisper fraught with desperation. Faith, once a gentle flame, now burned fiercely, illuminating the path through his tears. Bess explored ahead, her bells a melancholic tune that echoed his heartache, leading to a central square where an ancient well gaped like a wound in the earth. Tension mounted, each discovery layering emotional weight upon his weary spirit. Whispers encircled him, naming him as the chosen wanderer, destiny's pawn in a game of cosmic scale. His heart faltered, overwhelmed by the isolation, the fear that he was utterly alone in this vast, unforgiving narrative. Yet hope persisted, fragile but unyielding, a spark ignited by rural legends of redemption found in the depths. Elias rose, resolve hardening amid the turmoil, emotions raw and exposed like open veins. The well's edge beckoned, dark waters reflecting his tormented face, hinting at submerged secrets that could drown or elevate him. Suspense thickened, his breath shallow, as he leaned closer, compelled by an irresistible pull. A hand, his own, trembled on the stone, memories of past losses surging forth, amplifying the emotional stakes to unbearable heights. Tears fell into the abyss, mingling with the unknown below. Bess stood vigilant, her gaze locking with his, conveying unspoken encouragement that pierced his despair. In that bond, he found a sliver of peace, a reminder that love endured even in mystery's shadow. The air hummed with latent energy, a preamble to revelations that loomed like storm clouds, promising upheaval. Elias's soul quivered, faith and fear entwined in a dance of profound intensity. Distant echoes suggested movement in the ruins, perhaps guardians or illusions born of his heightened state. Tension escalated, his every sense attuned to the emotional razor edge of discovery. Reflections assailed him, how this journey mirrored his life's quest for meaning, each step a testament to hope's tenacity amid heartache. His chest tightened, emotions swelling to a fever pitch. As night fell within the cavernous town, stars peeking through cracks above, the mystery enveloped him like a shroud. Elias whispered vows of perseverance, his voice cracking with vulnerability. Bess curled at his feet, her warmth a balm against the chill of impending viradas, her presence fueling his waning strength. Love for her surged, an emotional anchor in the tempest. The well's depths called, a siren song laced with peril, drawing him toward a descent that could unravel everything. Suspense built inexorably, his heart a captive to the unfolding drama. In silence profound, he contemplated the cultural echoes of rural England, tales of souls bound by fate, amplifying his isolation and yearning. Tears flowed freely, cathartic in their release. Hope flickered anew, a defiant light against the encroaching dark, urging him to embrace the unknown with open arms. Yet fear lingered, a shadow that deepened every emotion. The rumble returned, closer now, vibrating through his bones, heralding a shift that could shatter illusions. Elias braced, emotions a whirlwind, ready yet terrified. Bess rose, alert, her instincts mirroring his turmoil, as shapes materialized in the gloom. Tension peaked, a magnetic force holding him in thrall. His mind raced, piecing fragments of letters and maps, emotions layering upon each other in a tapestry of anguish and anticipation. Faith whispered promises, but doubt roared back. As the first hint of movement solidified, his breath caught, the preamble to climax tightening like a noose around his soul. Heart pounding, he stepped forward. The mystery breathed, alive with potential, emotions at their zenith, suspending him in eternal suspense. Yet veils remained, secrets guarded fiercely, leaving his spirit aching for resolution. In this charged pause, rural heritage infused every shadow, heightening the poignant drama. Destiny's hand hovered, emotions pure and overwhelming, as the story teetered on the brink. The shapes in the gloom resolved into figures, tattered cloaks swaying like willow branches in a storm that wasn't there. Elias froze, every muscle taut, the air itself pressing against his ribs. Bess lowered her head, a low rumble vibrating in her throat, not fear but warning, the sound threading through his chest like a needle through cloth. One figure stepped forward, hood falling back to reveal a face carved by time and sorrow. Eyes the color of stormlit steel, skin parchment thin over bones that seemed too delicate for the weight they carried. The stranger's lips moved, but no sound reached Elias. Only the echo of his own heartbeat, frantic, pleading for this to be dream rather than destiny. A hand, gaunt, trembling, extended from the cloak, palm upturned, revealing a small iron key blackened by centuries of soot. The key caught the faint starlight filtering through cracks above, glinting like a tear frozen mid-fall. Elias's throat closed. The letters had spoken of this key, the one that unlocked either salvation or the final door to oblivion. He took a single step, boots scraping dust that rose in slow-motion spirals, each particle catching light like suspended memories. Emotion surged, grief for the life he'd left behind, terror of the life now demanding entrance, hope so fragile it might shatter at the brush of a breath. Tears blurred the stranger's face into a watercolor of loss. Bess nudged his leg, urgent, grounding him in the warmth of her flank. Her bells chimed once, a clear note that sliced the silence and drew every shadowed gaze. The figures shifted, cloaks rustling like dry leaves, forming a semicircle that trapped Elias between the well and the unknown. The stranger spoke at last, voice soft as moth wings yet carrying the weight of buried centuries. You were called wanderer, but calling is not choosing. The words sank into Elias's bones, stirring a grief he couldn't name, as if the town itself mourned through this spectral mouthpiece. Elias's fingers closed around the key, metal cold enough to burn. Visions flashed, his mother's hands kneading bread by a dying fire, the empty cradle he'd carved for a child who never came, the endless roads that had promised freedom but delivered only echoes. Each memory a thorn twisting deeper, drawing blood that tasted of salt and regret. The well behind him exhaled a sigh, water rippling though no wind touched it. Reflections danced across the surface. Faces he almost recognized, mouths open in silent screams or songs. He couldn't tell. His knees buckled. Only Bess's solid presence kept him upright, her breath warm against his wrist. A second figure approached, smaller, hood slipping to reveal a child's face. Impossible, ageless, eyes ancient as the stones. The child placed something in Elias's free hand. A single white feather, soft as forgiveness, heavy as judgment. For the choice, the child whispered, voice threading innocence with sorrow older than language. Elias looked down. The feather trembled in his palm, each barb catching light like threads of dawn. Emotion crested, wave upon wave. Love for the goat who had never left his side. Terror that love might not be enough. Faith that somewhere in this ruin lay the reason his heart had refused to harden. The stranger gestured toward a vine-choked archway beyond the well, where darkness pooled thicker than ink. The lock waits beneath the heart tree, they said, but the tree remembers every hand that failed it. The cloaked assembly parted, a corridor of shadow and silence opening like a wound. Elias's legs moved before his mind consented, drawn by a gravity deeper than fear. Each step echoed with the crunch of brittle leaves. Autumn preserved in stone, seasons trapped in the moment of falling. Bess walked beside him, bells muted now, as if the town itself demanded reverence. Halfway to the arch, the ground softened inexplicably, moss rising to cushion his boots like a mother's hush. He knelt without thinking, fingers sinking into the green, and felt a pulse, slow, deliberate, alive. The earth was breathing, his own breath synced to it, tears falling to nourish the moss, each drop a confession he'd never voiced. Rising, he saw the heart tree. An oak split down the middle long ago, its halves grown together again in a scarred embrace, roots delving into what might once have been a chapel floor. At its base, a rusted iron door no taller than his waist, keyhole shaped like an eye weeping verdigris tears. The key fit perfectly, sliding home with a sigh that might have been relief or resignation. Elias hesitated, palm flat against the wood, feeling the thrum of something vast on the other side. Hope, horror, or the mirror of his own soul, he couldn't tell. Bess pressed her forehead to his thigh, grounding him in the here, the now, the fur and heartbeat and unwavering trust. Behind them, the cloaked figures began to hum. A low, minor chord that vibrated in Elias's teeth, stirring memories of lullabies half forgotten, of his grandmother's voice promising that every ending birth's a beginning. The sound wrapped around his fear, not banishing it but cradling it. Making space for courage to bloom, he turned the key. The door swung inward on silent hinges, revealing stairs spiraling down into velvet dark, each step carved with runes that glowed faintly gold, then crimson, then the soft white of moon on snow. A scent rose. Lilac and loam, childhood summers and graves newly dug, braided together in impossible harmony. Elias descended one step, then another, Bess's hooves clicking behind him like a metronome for his unraveling heart. Emotion layered upon emotion. Grief for what he might lose, exhilaration at what he might find. Love so fierce it bordered on pain. The feather in his pocket brushed his hip, a reminder that choice still hovered, unmade. Halfway down, The walls widened into a chamber where roots had woven themselves into a cathedral of living wood. At its center stood a stone plinth, and upon it, a book bound in leather the color of storm clouds. No lock, no clasp, just the weight of expectation. Elias approached, each footfall a prayer. The book's cover bore a single symbol, the same eye that wept on the door above, now open, watchful. His fingers hovered, trembling. To open it would be to step fully into the story. To turn back would be to carry the ache of almost knowing forever. Bess circled the plinth once, then sat, eyes fixed on Elias with a patience that transcended species. In her gaze he saw reflected every crossroads he'd ever faced, every dawn he'd greeted with hope despite the night's betrayals. Love surged, wordless and absolute. He opened the book. Pages rustled like wings. The first illumination showed a nomad and a goat beneath starlight, map in hand. Himself, rendered in inks that shimmered with life. Below the image, words in a script he shouldn't know yet understood with his soul. The wanderer arrives not to end the tale, but to begin it anew. Emotion cracked him open. Joy and terror braided so tightly, he couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. Tears fell onto the page, and where they landed, the ink bled into new shapes. Tunnels branching, towns rising from ruin. A child with his eyes holding a white feather aloft. Behind him, the stairs sealed with a whisper of roots knitting together. No retreat, only forward, into pages yet unwritten. Elias turned to the next, heart pounding a rhythm older than language. Bess's warmth at his side, the only constant in a world remaking itself. The chamber breathed with him, roots pulsing in time with his pulse, as if the tree and the man and the goat had become one organism suspended between heartbeats. Somewhere above, the cloaked figures waited. Somewhere below, the story deepened. Faith, raw and trembling, carried him onward. He read on, each word a step deeper into the mystery, each illustration a mirror reflecting futures he hadn't dared imagine. Emotion cresting, receding, cresting again. Like tides shaped by a moon he couldn't see but felt in his blood. Bess rested her chin on the plinth, eyes half closed in contentment or vigilance. He couldn't tell. The feather in his pocket grew warm, then hot, then weightless, as if preparing to fly. Elias turned another page, breath held in reverence and dread. Ink shifted before his eyes, forming a single sentence that glowed like ember. The key was never for a door, but for a heart ready to break open. His own heart stuttered, then expanded, walls he'd built over decades of wandering crumbling like the town above. Tears flowed freely now, not of sorrow but of recognition. This was the moment destiny had wandered with him to reach, the moment hope outgrew fear. The chamber brightened, roots unfurling to reveal windows of stained glass grown from crystal and earth. Scenes of nomads passed, goats leading, towns reborn in light. Music swelled, wordless, woven from wind through leaves and water over stone and the quiet certainty of belonging. Elias closed the book gently, pressing it to his chest. It pulsed like a second heart. Bess rose, bells chiming a new melody, joyful, urgent, inevitable. Together they faced the far wall, where roots parted like curtains to reveal a corridor glowing with dawn he hadn't known was coming. He stepped forward, book in one hand, Bess at his side, feather now floating before him like a guiding star. Emotion no longer a storm but a river, deep, steady, carrying him toward whatever waited beyond the light. The corridor stretched, roots overhead forming arches that whispered blessings in languages forgotten by time. Each footfall left footprints of soft green moss, as if the earth itself celebrated his passage. Hope, no longer fragile, sang in his veins. Behind him, the chamber sealed with a sigh of contentment, preserving the book for the next wanderer, or perhaps for his return. Ahead, the light intensified, revealing glimpses. Fields of wheat bending in wind, children laughing. A town square where an oak grew strong and whole. Elias walked on, heart open, destiny no longer a weight but wings. Bess matched his stride, bells an anthem of arrival. The mystery unfolded not as revelation but as homecoming, yet threads of the unknown still shimmered, promising the story was far from over. The corridor of light spilled Elias and Bess into a vast underground meadow, an impossible expanse where grass glowed silver under a ceiling of living roots that arched like the vault of a cathedral built by gods who never left. The air tasted of rain on warm stone and distant lilac, and every breath felt like the first after a long-held sob. Elias's knees buckled. He sank into the grass, book still pressed to his chest, and let the tears come unchecked. Not sorrow now, but release. The kind that hollows a man so grace can fill the hollow. Bess grazed beside him, unhurried, her bells chiming in soft counterpoint to the hush of wind moving through unseen leaves. Above them, tiny motes of light drifted like fireflies born of starlight and earth. They settled on the book's cover, tracing the eye symbol until it opened fully, pupil wide, reflecting Elias's own face, older, younger, both at once. He laughed, a cracked sound that turned into wonder when the reflection smiled first. The feather, which had floated ahead, now hovered above a narrow path of white stones winding through the meadow toward a distant grove. Each stone bore a faint inscription, too small to read from here, but pulsing gently as if keeping time with his heart. Destiny, no longer a pull but an invitation, whispered, "Walk." Elias rose. The grass clung to his trousers like children reluctant to let go. He brushed it away gently, reverently, and took the first step. The path accepted his weight with a sigh, as though it had waited centuries for the exact pressure of his boot sole. Bess walked to his left, head high, bells singing a melody that felt older than language, notes that stirred memories of lullabies his mother hummed while mending nets by candlelight. The tune braided itself into the meadow's hush, and the glowing motes began to dance in slow spirals, following the music. Halfway across, the path forked. To the right, darkness pooled, sweet with the scent of turned earth and distant rain. To the left, light shimmered, warm as hearthfire, carrying faint laughter. The fork was unmarked, yet Elias felt the weight of choice settle on his shoulders like a familiar cloak. He knelt, pressing a palm to each path. The dark one thrummed with sorrow, grief for things lost, for roads not taken. The light one pulsed with joy, promise of reunion, of hands long missed. Both called with equal truth. His heart, newly cracked open, ached with the beauty of having to choose. Bess nudged the dark path, then the light, then stood between them, waiting. Her eyes held no judgment, only trust. Elias closed his eyes and listened, not with ears, but with the raw place the book had carved inside him. A single word surfaced, soft as moth wings. Balance. He opened his eyes. The motes had formed a delicate bridge of light spanning both paths, arching high above the fork like a promise that neither choice need sever the other. Elias exhaled, a sound between laugh and prayer, and stepped onto the bridge it held. Beneath his feet, light solidified into translucent crystal veined with silver roots. Each step rang like a bell, and the meadow responded. Grass rippling outward in perfect circles, motes swirling into the shape of birds that dissolved into music before they could fly. The bridge carried them above the fork, above choice itself, and deposited them gently on the far side where the white stone path resumed as one. Elias looked back. The bridge was already fading, a reminder that some choices exist only in the moment of choosing. Ahead, the grove resolved into ancient yews circling a clearing. At its center stood a tree unlike any Elias had ever seen. Trunk white as birch, leaves gold as harvest moon, roots drinking from a spring that bubbled up clear and singing. Around the spring, small offerings lay. A child's wooden goat, a woman's braided ribbon, a man's worn boot lace, tokens left by wanderers long gone. Elias approached slowly, book heavy in his arms. The spring's song matched Bess's bells, and for a moment the meadow, the grove, the tree, the goat, and the man were one chord in a larger harmony. He knelt at the water's edge. His reflection looked up, eyes bright with tears that hadn't yet fallen. The book opened of its own accord. Blank pages now bore fresh ink. A map, but not of tunnels or towns. This map showed veins of light beneath the earth, converging here, then spreading outward like roots of a world tree. One vein pulsed beneath his knees, warm through stone and soil. A memory, not his rose unbidden. A woman with calloused hands planting an acorn in this very spot, whispering, "For the one who carries the broken heart and still walks." The vision dissolved, leaving the scent of turned earth and the taste of hope. Elias dipped his fingers into the spring. The water was warm, alive, tasting of every dawn he'd ever greeted. He drank. Light poured through him, not blinding but gentle, like sunlight filtered through leaves. The book's pages fluttered, and new words appeared. The key turns inward. Speak your name to the roots. He hesitated. Names carry weight. To speak his here might bind him forever. Bess pressed close, breath warm on his ear. In her eyes he saw every campfire they'd shared, every storm they'd outlasted. He drew a shaky breath. "Elias," he said, voice cracking like thin ice over deep water. "Elias, son of Mara, wanderer, keeper of Bess, bearer of almosts and not-yets." The tree answered. Roots unfurled from the spring, gentle as a mother's arms, wrapping around his wrists, his ankles, his heart. Not restraint, embrace. Light surged through the roots into him, and he felt the meadow's pulse, the grove's memory, the spring's endless song braid into his blood. Images cascaded. The abandoned town above, roofs mended by unseen hands, fields blooming where stone had lain, children chasing a white goat with silver bells. And at the center of every scene, a man with kind eyes and a book, teaching, listening, mending. The roots released him as gently as they'd held. He was still kneeling, but the book now lay open on the grass, pages blank once more, waiting. The spring had stilled, reflecting a sky he couldn't see, full of stars that spelled his name in languages of light. Bess nudged the book, then looked toward the far edge of the grove where a new path glimmered, neither dark nor light, but the color of dawn on water. Elias stood. His legs were steady, his heart vast. The ache of choosing had transmuted into the strength of having chosen. He tucked the book under his arm, feather now tucked between its pages like a bookmark for futures yet to write. Together he and Bess walked the new path. Behind them, the spring began to sing again, softer now, a lullaby for the next wanderer. The path wound upward, roots overhead thinning to reveal true sky. Impossible, yet there, streaked with rose and gold. Birdsong drifted down, real and immediate. Elias's eyes stung. He had forgotten birds could sound like hope made audible. They emerged into a valley he'd never seen, though it felt like homecoming. Dawn painted the hills, and in the distance, smoke curled from chimneys of a town that hadn't existed hours ago. Or perhaps it had, hidden until the right heart opened. Elias paused at the valley's edge. The book warmed against his ribs, pages rustling with wind that carried scents of baking bread and wood smoke and children's laughter. Bess shook her bells, eager. He smiled, small, tremulous, true. Somewhere in the town, a door stood open. Somewhere, a table waited to be set for one more. Somewhere, the story turned another page, and the ink was still wet. He took the first step down the slope, grass cool beneath his boots, dawn warm on his face. The path stretched ahead, endless and beginning at once. Behind him, the grove sealed with a whisper of roots, keeping its secrets for the next cracked open heart. Elias walked on, goat at his side, book in his arms, feather trembling with stories yet to unfold. The valley welcomed him with open arms and quiet songs, and the mystery, far from ended, bloomed wider, deeper, brighter than any single revelation could contain. The town unfolded before Elias like a memory he had never lived. Cobbled streets curved gently between stone cottages whose windows glowed amber with lamplight, though the sun had only just risen. Smoke rose in lazy spirals from chimneys that had not existed the night before, carrying the scent of baking bread and wood smoke and something indefinably like forgiveness. Elias slowed. Each footfall sounded too loud on the stones, as though the town itself were listening. Bess walked with her head high, bells chiming a new rhythm, bright, curious, unafraid. Children's laughter drifted from an alley, then vanished, leaving only the hush of wind through ivy that climbed every wall like green lace. A woman stood in the nearest doorway, apron dusted with flour, eyes the color of storm-washed sky. She did not speak, only tilted her head in gentle recognition, as if she had been expecting him for years. Elias's throat tightened. Her face echoed the woman from the spring vision, the one who planted the acorn. The resemblance was impossible, yet his heart accepted it without question. He lifted a hand in hesitant greeting. She smiled, small, sad, luminous, and stepped aside, revealing a table set for two. Fresh bread still steaming, a pat of butter melting into gold, a single white feather laid across the plate like a promise. The book in Elias's arms grew warm, pages rustling though no wind touched them. Bess trotted forward without hesitation, nudging the woman's knee. The woman knelt, scratched behind the goat's ears, and murmured something too soft to catch. Bess bleated once, content, then circled the table and lay down as though she had always belonged there. Elias followed, legs heavy with the weight of arrival. Inside, the cottage smelled of yeast and cedar and old stories. A fire crackled low in the hearth, though the morning was mild. On the mantel sat a row of tiny carved goats, each unique, each worn smooth by loving hands. Elias's eyes stung. One of them was Bess, down to the chipped bell and the white star on her forehead. The woman broke the bread, steam curling between them like incense. "You're late," she said, voice gentle as the spring song. "But not too late." She placed half the loaf on his plate. Butter pooled in the center, catching firelight. Elias's fingers trembled as he tore a piece. It tasted of every hunger he had ever carried, and of every meal shared with strangers who became family for a night. They ate in silence that was not empty. Outside, the town stirred, doors opening, voices calling, the rhythmic thud of a loom. Each sound wove itself into the cottage's quiet until the walls seemed to breathe with the life of the place. Elias felt the book pulse against his ribs, impatient, alive. When the plate was empty, the woman stood and crossed to a small wooden box on the windowsill. She opened it, revealing a second iron key. This one bright, newly forged, warm to the touch. "The first key opened the door," she said. "This one opens the story." She pressed it into his palm. It fit the hollow of his hand as though it had always belonged there. Elias turned the key over. Etched along its shaft were tiny runes that shifted when he blinked. Now a path, now a tree, now a goat, now his own name. The woman watched him with eyes that held centuries. "Every keeper leaves a mark," she said. "Yours is just beginning." She led him outside. The town had grown while they ate, more cottages. A market square where stalls bloomed with apples and honey and bolts of cloth the color of sunrise. People moved between them, faces familiar though he had never met them. The child from the tunnels, older now, the cloaked stranger, hood thrown back to reveal a smile. A young man with Elias's eyes mending a fence with careful hands. None spoke to him directly, yet every glance was a welcome. A girl no older than 10 pressed a daisy chain into his free hand, then ran off laughing. The flowers smelled of the meadow underground, of spring water and starlight. Elias tucked them behind Bess's ear. She shook her bells in delight. At the square's center stood the heart tree, now whole, leaves shimmering gold in true sunlight. Its roots spread beneath the cobblestones, visible as faint veins of light. Children played around its trunk, weaving in and out of roots that rose and fell like gentle waves. One root curled invitingly, forming a natural seat. Elias sat, the tree side, content. The book opened on his lap. Blank pages filled with ink that flowed like water. The town as it was now, the town as it had been in ruin, the town as it might yet become. Between the images, words appeared in his own handwriting though he had not written them. Asterisk, the keeper does not end the story. The keeper tends it. Asterisk. Bess lay beside him, head on his knee. The woman, keeper before him, he understood now, knelt and placed her hand over his on the book. Warmth passed between them, memory and responsibility braided tight. "When you're ready," she said, "the roots will show you the next door." Elias looked up. The town stretched beyond the square into fields golden with wheat, a river glinting silver in the distance, hills rolling green beneath a sky wide enough for every dream he had ever carried. Somewhere in that expanse, another tunnel waited, another map, another heart cracked open and waiting to be filled. He closed the book. The key in his pocket pulsed once, twice, then settled. The daisy chain around Bess's neck glowed faintly, petals unfurling to reveal tiny seeds of light. Elias stood. The tree's roots shifted, parting the cobblestones to reveal a spiral staircase descending into fragrant earth. The woman embraced him. Her hair smelled of bread and lilac. "You'll know when to return," she whispered. "The story calls its keepers home." She stepped back, eyes bright with tears that refused to fall. The townsfolk gathered, silent, smiling, a living tapestry of welcome and farewell. Elias descended. Each step rang like the bells on Bess's collar, echoing upward into the square. The staircase spiraled through layers of time, past the underground meadow, past the tunnels, past the night he had found the first map. Roots brushed his shoulders like blessings. Light followed, soft and golden, neither above nor below but within. At the bottom, a single door stood, wood pale as birch, carved with the eye that now blinked slowly, awake. The new key fit without resistance. The door swung inward on a breeze that smelled of rain about to fall and bread about to rise. Beyond lay a landscape Elias had never seen yet recognized in his bones. Rolling hills, a sky vast enough for storms and stars, a path winding toward a horizon that shimmered with possibility. Bess stepped through first, bells chiming a bright, brave note. Elias followed, book in one hand, key in the other, heart wide open. Behind them, the door closed with the gentle finality of a story turning its page. The town above would wait, tended by the keeper who had come before, growing and changing with every season. Ahead, the path stretched endless and beginning at once. Elias walked on. The wind carried seeds of light from the daisy chain, planting them in the soil as he passed. Where they fell, tiny oaks sprouted, leaves gold as harvest moon. Bess trotted beside him, bells singing of arrivals yet to come. The book warmed, pages rustling with stories waiting to be lived. Somewhere, another nomad wandered with a goat and a half-remembered dream. Somewhere, a map yellowed in the earth, waiting for the right cracked open heart. Somewhere, the story turned another page, and the ink was still wet. The path beyond the door curved gently through hills that breathed with the slow rhythm of sleeping giants. Each footfall pressed a faint glow into the earth, as though Elias walked upon a living tapestry woven from starlight and loam. Bess's bells answered the hush of wind in the grass, a duet that made the sky lean closer to listen. Elias opened the book as he walked. Pages turned themselves, revealing sketches of places he had yet to see. A river that sang in minor chords, a bridge of woven willow, a village built entirely of doors. Ink bled and reformed, never quite settling, as if the story refused to be pinned to a single shape. The key in his pocket grew warmer with every step, a second heartbeat. At the crest of the first hill, the landscape opened into a valley cradled by mist. In its heart stood a single oak, ancient and alone, its trunk split by lightning long ago yet still alive, sap bleeding gold in the morning light. Around its roots lay offerings, a child's shoe, a broken compass, a letter sealed with wax the color of dried blood. Elias's chest tightened. He recognized the ache of leaving pieces of oneself behind. He knelt. The earth here was soft, warm, humming. The book fell open to a blank page that filled with his own reflection. Not as he was, but as he might become. Hair silvered by seasons, eyes bright with stories, hands scarred by tending. Beneath the image, words appeared in his mother's careful script. The keeper carries what others cannot. Bess nudged the broken compass. Its needle spun wildly, then settled, pointing not north but toward the oak's hollow heart. A low invitation rumbled from within the tree, not words but feeling. Come, see, remember. Elias stepped forward. The hollow widened as he approached, revealing a spiral stair of roots descending into fragrant dark. He hesitated only long enough to tuck the daisy chain more securely behind Bess's ear. Its petals had begun to glow, seeds of light pulsing like tiny hearts. Then he descended, goat at his side, book held before him like a lantern. The roots closed overhead, sealing them in a cocoon of living wood. The stair ended in a chamber no larger than a cottage, yet vast with memory. Walls of polished heartwood reflected countless faces. Keepers passed, eyes gentle with the weight of stories. At the center stood a low stone table. Upon it lay a single acorn, gold-veined, warm to the touch. The key in Elias's pocket leapt, fitting itself to an invisible lock in the air. A soft click. The acorn split, revealing not seed but light, pure, liquid, singing. It poured into the book, pages drinking it greedily. Images flared. The abandoned town blooming, the underground meadow feeding rivers of starlight, children planting acorns that grew into doorways. And at the center of every scene, a man and a goat, walking, tending, leaving light in their wake. The light dimmed to a steady glow. The chamber walls receded, revealing a circle of doors, each carved from a different wood, each humming with its own key. Elias understood. Every door led to a place that needed a keeper, a story half told, a heart cracked open and waiting. The acorn's empty shell lay in his palm, light as forgiveness. Bess circled the doors, sniffing, bells chiming a questioning note. One door, pale birch, carved with goats in mid-leap, swung open at her touch. Beyond lay a twilight path through heather, scent of rain on stone, distant sound of waves. The book warmed, pages rustling with anticipation. Elias stepped through. The chamber sealed behind them with the soft finality of a story turning its page. The path stretched toward a cliff where the sea met sky in a line of liquid silver. On the cliff's edge stood a figure, small, cloaked, holding a lantern that burned with the same light now pulsing in the book. The figure turned. A child's face, ancient eyes. "You're early," the child said, voice carrying the weight of tides. "But the tide waits for no keeper." The lantern lifted, revealing a narrow stair carved into the cliff, descending to a beach where waves wrote and erased messages in foam. Elias followed. Each step left a footprint of light that lingered, guiding. Bess bounded ahead, bells singing over the crash of waves. The beach stretched endless, yet intimate. Every shell a story, every grain of sand a choice. The child walked backward, lantern swinging, eyes never leaving Elias's. At the water's edge, the child stopped. "The sea keeps what the land forgets," they said. "Your turn to listen." The lantern dimmed. In its place, the sea offered a gift. A bottle, corked, bobbing gently. Elias lifted it. Inside, a map, not parchment but water itself, shifting to show coastlines that breathed. He uncorked it. The map poured into the book, pages drinking it like thirst. New images. Islands that rose and sank with the moon, cities of coral and song. A lighthouse built of broken keys. The child smiled, small, sad, luminous, and stepped into the wave. The sea closed over them without a ripple. Elias stood alone with Bess, book heavy with water and light. The tide tugged at his boots, gentle, insistent. He understood. The next door was not wood but wave. The key in his pocket dissolved into salt that stung his eyes like tears he hadn't known he still carried. Bess nudged him toward the water. Her bells chimed a new note, brave, curious, certain. Elias tucked the book inside his coat, close to his heart. The sea opened a path, silver and steady, leading to a horizon that shimmered with possibility. He stepped onto it. The water held. Behind him, the beach erased their footprints, keeping the secret. Ahead, the path stretched endless and beginning at once. The book pulsed, pages rustling with stories waiting to be lived. Somewhere, another shore waited, another heart cracked open and ready. Elias walked on. The sea sang beneath his feet, Bess's bells answered above, and the story, far from ended, bloomed wider, deeper, salt-bright with futures yet to unfold. The path of water carried Elias and Bess beneath a sky that had forgotten the difference between dawn and dusk. Waves rose like cathedral arches, light filtering through them in shafts of liquid gold. Fish darted in silent choirs, their scales flashing stories older than language. The book, now salt-stiff and glowing, rested against Elias's heart, its pages turning with the tide. They walked until the sea itself grew shallow, revealing a shore of black sand that sang when stepped upon, notes rising in perfect harmony with Bess's bells. On the shore stood a single door, driftwood pale and salt-bleached, carved with every map Elias had ever followed. It stood open. Beyond lay not land, but sky, an endless meadow of clouds where stars grew like flowers. Elias stepped through. The door closed behind them with the soft finality of a lullaby's last note. The clouds held their weight, soft as forgiveness. In the distance, a tree grew upside down, roots drinking starlight, leaves brushing the black sand shore far below. Around its trunk circled every keeper who had ever walked with a cracked open heart, some cloaked, some barefoot, all smiling with eyes that held the same gentle ache. The woman from the cottage was there, flour still dusting her apron. The child from the cliff held the lantern, now dark. The cloaked stranger lifted a hand in greeting. They formed a circle, leaving space for one more. Elias understood. This was the final door, not an ending but a gathering. He opened the book. Its pages were blank, yet full, every story he had tended, every light he had left, every heart he had helped mend shimmered there in silent ink. The keepers reached out. Their hands met his warm, calloused, kind. Light passed between them, not blinding but gentle, like the first breath after a long-held sob. The book dissolved into motes that rose and settled on the upside-down tree, becoming leaves of pure light. The key in Elias's pocket followed, melting into a single golden acorn that nestled among the roots. Bess's bells chimed once, clear and final, then fell silent. Yet the silence was full of music, the kind that lives in the space between heartbeats. Elias looked at the circle. No one spoke. Words were no longer needed. He stepped into the center. The keepers closed the circle around him, hands linked. Light flared, not from above or below, but from within each of them, braided into a single flame that held every color of every dawn he had ever greeted. The flame rose, carrying them all. The upside-down tree bloomed, leaves unfurling into wings. The meadow of clouds became a sky of wings, lifting them higher, gently, inevitably. Below, the black sand shore erased itself, wave by wave. The driftwood door drifted away, becoming a boat, then a star, then memory. Elias felt his own heart dissolve, not into nothingness, but into everything. He was the path, the goat, the book, the light. He was every keeper who had walked before and every wanderer yet to come. Bess was there, bells silent but present, her warmth the constant that had carried him home. The light settled into a single point, then expanded into a new sky. Somewhere, a nomad found a cryptic map half buried in brambles. Somewhere, a goat led the way through tunnels to an abandoned town waiting to bloom. Somewhere, a heart cracked open and began to fill. The story did not end. It simply turned its final page and became the ink for the next.